Hey guys, so today I want to talk about studying with a disability. Now, pretty much everything is a little bit harder, at least when you're disabled, and studying is no exception to that. I found studying really difficult for quite some time, and without some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, I feel like I probably would have dropped out of high school and never gone back. For a little bit of context, and so that you know where I'm coming from and how much my experience will relate to yours, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 12, the juvenile kind, obviously, and so I went through all of intermediate school and all of high school with a disability, and then I went on to university to get a triple major degree with a disability as well. So that's where I'm coming from and what I'll be talking about today, and yeah, let's get into it. So this first thing seems really obvious to me now, but certainly when I first started intermediate school, it didn't seem obvious to me at all. I didn't even know it existed. I feel like if you have been disabled since you were very young, this is probably super obvious to you, and if you, like me, became disabled a little bit later, you may not think of this immediately. So the first thing is to go to your school or university's disability services department. Now, I'm not quite sure how this works in other countries. In New Zealand, every educational body has to have a disability services department. I think it's probably the same in most countries. So whatever yours is called, in New Zealand it's disability services, in your country it might be something else. If it is something else, let me know in the comments down below, and also if your country doesn't have something like that, please let me/other people know in the comments below so that they know not to spend too much time looking for it if it doesn't exist. Okay, tangent over. So when I first started intermediate school, I went to my disability services department, and I had basically just been diagnosed at this point, and I was like, hi, I have arthritis and I don't know what to do. Please help. And they were just incredible. I was really lucky that I went to an intermediate and high school, which were the same school, and then a university that had just amazing disability services departments, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Basically, what my intermediate school and high school did for me was they just gave me a sheet of paper with a list of all of their different services that they offered, and I checked yes or no to whether I needed each one. And they had things like, sorry, I can't actually remember a lot of the things that they offered, but it was things like, do you need someone to take notes for you in class? Do you need to have a computer to type essays on instead of handwriting? Do you need to take courses by correspondence? That kind of thing. And so I just got to choose basically which ones I needed and which ones I didn't, and that was such a great way to do things because it allowed me to keep as much of my independence as possible and still feel like I was doing everything that I could, but also I wasn't forced into doing things that I physically couldn't do. So for my first 2 years, I think, at intermediate, I only had one sort of helping thing, and that was I was allowed to type my essays for exams instead of handwriting them, because handwriting for an hour or whatever is not something I could do then, and not something I can do now. Just not a possibility. And that was fantastic because it let me show that I had been studying and I knew all these things, I just couldn't physically write them. After that, I got a lot sicker and I couldn't attend most of my classes. I'd say in my last couple of years of high school, I attended maybe 40%, maybe less, of my classes, and so I opted to do a lot of my schooling by correspondence. My high school was really fantastic. I don't know how common this is, but they had a correspondence school that they were affiliated with, and so you could take correspondence courses and then those credits would go towards your high school degree. And so that's what I did. I took classics, sociology, and some science, I think chemistry, by correspondence, and it was brilliant. I really thought that it wouldn't make much of a difference and that I can barely do anything, I'm stuck in bed all day, I can't think straight, so why would studying at home be any different from studying at school? But the fact that I could do it in my own time and from home, from bed, essentially, just made all the difference in the world. I was really surprised at what a difference correspondence school made for me. So yeah, I think just not having to drag my broken, creaky body to school every day was really, really helpful. So that's how I got through high school and intermediate, and disability services was just an absolute godsend for me. So I really recommend going to talk to them, even if you think that there's not terribly much that can be done for you and that you feel like you won't be able to keep studying. Go and talk to them. They might have things to offer that you've never even thought of or that you didn't think were a possibility for you. Just go and have a chat and see what they have to offer you. Number 2 is to create and maintain good relationships with your teachers, tutors, and lecturers. I think this is a little bit more important at university than it is in primary or high school, but regardless, I think it's important always. So what I recommend is the first time that you go to course or to class, either before or after the lesson, whenever your lecturer looks like they're more free, go up and introduce yourself and just let them know like what's going on with you and what the deal is and how that might affect your ability to attend class or hand in assignments and things like that on time. Obviously, if you don't hand things in at all or like hand them in really late, you are still not going to pass regardless of any special dispensation, but this will really help when it comes to down the road asking for special dispensation for things. I got really, really fortunate. Again, I feel like my whole schooling experience has just been really lucky in that all of my lecturers were absolutely incredible, except one. In my 3 years at university, I only had one lecturer who was super hardline and was just like, nope, if you don't attend my class, I don't care if you're in hospital, I'm docking points from you for the year. And if you don't hand this essay in on time, I cannot accept it. That was the only class that I got anything less than an A in, and I'm still kind of bitter about it in case you couldn't tell. But apart from that, everyone was fantastic. My lecturers were just so kind and so understanding, and I think creating that rapport with them at the start of your time together really, really helps. I also made a point to keep them in the loop with things, so if I went into hospital for a couple of days, I would let them know as soon as I could that I wouldn't be attending a course on X date for this reason, and so on and so forth. I just think being really open and honest with your tutors is going to help them to understand your situation and to be a little bit more lenient with you when it comes to things like deadlines and attending class. I also think the earlier you can tell them, so like first class is great, the earlier you can tell them the better, because then it doesn't look like it's coming out of nowhere, right? So if you didn't hand in an essay on time and then you're suddenly like, oh, I was in hospital, it kind of looks a little bit suspicious because they had no idea that you were sick beforehand, you know what I mean? But if you've mentioned it to them as a possibility right at the start, then they know that that could be coming and they can be prepared for it. So yeah, create and maintain good relationships with your tutors and lecturers. I think it's really, really important, and it'll just help your educational experience go so much more smoothly. This next thing is university specific pretty much, but my advice is for the first year, either stay at home if you have a supportive family or stay close to home. I know it's really, really tempting to fly the nest and spread your wings and go and live really far away in a dorm and have the college experience, but number one, spoiler alert, that experience doesn't actually exist. Much like the relationships that you see in movies and TV, the college experience that you see in movies and on TV doesn't exist. It's just fictional. No one has that experience, and it's important to realize that so that you're not constantly chasing this thing that doesn't exist and feeling disappointed when you don't get it. And number two, you want to give yourself the best chance to succeed. So I think part of that is doing things in stages. So going into tertiary education will already be a pretty big change most likely, and that can add a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, it can take away a lot of energy from you, and it's important for you to spend a little bit of time getting used to that before you decide to add in another big change into the mix. I think the danger of trying to like change everything all at once is that you could end up failing and then feeling like you can't do tertiary education when that might not be the case. It might just be that you tried to do too many things at once and burned out and couldn't do it and then felt like you failed. So I think for the first year, just stay either at home if you have a supportive family or close to whoever your support system is. Don't fly the nest just yet, and then at the end of your first year you can reevaluate where you are and what you feel like is best for you, whether that is trying to move further away and sort of being a little bit more independent, or whether that's staying exactly where you are, or whether that's staying close to your support system but not living with them. Whatever works for you. It's important here to be really honest with yourself, because as nice as it would be to think, yeah, I can totally move out, I could just live on my own right now, I could do it. If you do that and you are unable to, it's going to have a pretty big effect on your self-esteem and also on your studies. So I think it's really important to have an honest conversation with yourself about how you think you would deal with these things. What are your limits? What can you do? What can't you do? How much energy do you have left over to look after yourself? All those kinds of things. And just be patient with yourself and be realistic about your limitations and what you're doing, and be aware that tertiary study is draining and intense for a lot of people. So it's not unusual to not be able to do other things while you're studying. So yeah, maybe try to do things in stages. Just don't go too far afield right away, and give yourself the best chance at success that you possibly can. The final thing that I want to say here is that education is not a race and not a competition. Just like everything else in life, it's pretty easy to get caught up looking at what other people are doing and how their lives are going, or what the standard, the normal is for people, and think, well, I'm not doing that, and so I'm failing. Absolutely not true. So if tertiary education is something that's important to you, by all means go for it. And don't mind if your bachelor's takes 7, 8, 9 years to complete. It doesn't matter. It's still just as valuable and just as something that you should be just as proud of as anyone who took 3 years. Anyone who tells you any differently is just being really elitist over something that literally makes no difference. However, it's also important to recognize that if tertiary education isn't something that's important to you, and perhaps you feel like you should go to university because all the people that you know are, or because your parents want you to, or just because society says that that's the next step in your life, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go to university. It's not imperative, it's not vital. If you don't feel like it's important to you, you shouldn't do it. I think one of the most important things to learn as a disabled person is that your only competition is yourself. Like, the only person that you're competing against is you, to try to live your best life and do the best that you possibly can. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Some people might try to turn things into a competition, and society might try to tell you to be competitive about things, but you really don't have to be. It really doesn't matter. Just do things at your own pace, at your own speed, and be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to do something. It doesn't even matter if you do something. If one thing is important to you and not to another person, doesn't matter. They don't have to do it and you can do it, or you don't have to do it and they can do it. It doesn't make your experience any less valuable than anyone else's. So yeah, I hope I explained this okay. I feel like I kind of just didn't word it very well, but I hope you guys can understand what I mean. It's really not a competition at all, and it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get anywhere, or if you even do get anywhere. Just live your best life and do things the way that you need to do them and the way that you want to do them. So those are my tips for studying with a disability. I really hope that they've been helpful to you and made you feel like you can achieve what you want to achieve. If you have any more questions about things that I might be able to answer, please ask them in the comments down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace!